guys, Troy here with Cape Ann Conversations, and I've got Rob with me today, Rob Fitzgibbons from Essex, working on coffee cuppings. Rob, say hello to everybody and give us a little backstory here on how you got into coffee, because you are into coffee.
I am. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Rob Fitzgibbon, Essex resident and proprietor of Creations, which does coffee cuppings. And what is a coffee cupping? Well, basically, it's an opportunity to savor coffee. And how I got into it, my day job for decades was being a what's called a user experience designer. So that's a role in a tech company that helps design interfaces for iPhones or SaaS platforms or all that kind of digital stuff. And as part of that role, I used to go and do a lot of discovery sessions with clients. I would actually, go to a conference room. I would have to meet with a bunch of people I didn't know, and talk to them about like, well, what do you want your product to do? Like, who are the users? What are the tasks and goals and all that kind of stuff. So I got familiar with, standing up in front of a bunch of people and giving presentations. And just as, of course, as a tech worker, I'd always loved coffee, and I'd loved coffee ever since I'd, gone to art school down in Providence, Rhode Island. There's a coffee shop on Wickenden Street there that's really fantastic. And what happened was about a decade ago, I just had some I was really into coffee, and I had some friends over, and I said, like, let's just do a cupping. This what we're gonna do is we're gonna try some coffees, and let's document what we taste and what we smell. And one of the people that I invited was a local librarian, and she said, "Oh my gosh, this would be a great library program." And so she posted about the coffee cupping that I had done on a local listserv, and all of a sudden I had these like libraries starting contacting me and saying, "Hey, would you come to our library and give a cupping?" And I said yes. And it's only been in like the last year that there's been a lot of momentum for these, and I'm getting more and more libraries and community centers calling me. And so now I want to kind of make this into kind of a thing, more of a business, and just kind of spread the word about experiencing coffee and learning about coffee.
Yeah, so you have your own history with coffee, obviously, your love for it, and coffee, I think, is by definition the most drank. Maybe tea is the most drank, like item in the world, right? Like everybody has had an experience with coffee, but maybe not like this.
No.
And this is not Dunkin' Donuts coffee with sugar and cream. Maybe and that's all fine. That's great. That can be your daily jolt to starting your day. But sort of explain the nuanced difference in how a cupping, like what is the cupping experience when you're doing it today?
Yes. Okay. So what I do is it takes about an hour and a half. It can take a little longer depending on how much everybody wants to sit around and chat about and ask questions about coffee. But I start off with a brief, say, 20-minute presentation about coffee as an agricultural product. So I talk about, okay, well, like, what's the species, where is it grown, how is it grown, how is it processed, how is it roasted, and then of course how do we consume it as humans. I think in the United States, I think we drink about 2.25 billion cups of coffee a day. So yeah, this is definitely something that like a lot of us experience. But one of the things I'm really fascinated by is that this is a drink that a lot of people, um, they consume it, but they're not paying attention to it. So this is an opportunity for us to pay attention to this drink. It's frankly like a wine tasting, but with coffee, and really focus on the wonderful smells and aromas of coffee. So what we do, it's a blind taste test. There are three types of coffee and each time I do a cupping, it's different. There's a big poster. So I go to this presentation. I tell everybody about coffee. I tell them about like roasting levels and mouthfeel and acidity and all that kind of good stuff. And then the interactive exercise is that I use a flavor wheel, which basically has all these. It's a big poster that has all these like labels on it: salty, sweet, um, you know, camphor, apricot, whatever. And I say, hey, everybody, I'm going to give you these little stickies, and I want you to go up and document what you taste and what you smell. And at first everyone's kind of nervous, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, there's no wrong answers. Like, this is what you're experiencing, and that's okay. And that's what's fun about it, is because this is typically a drink that people aren't paying attention to what they're experiencing, and all of a sudden I'm focusing them on paying attention to it. And again, as you mentioned, there's no coffee, there's no sugar, there's no bagels, there's no. It's just focusing on the coffee. So everyone gets up and they do, like, they put their little stickies all over the poster, and we rinse repeat, no pun intended, 3 times. So we try coffee number 1, coffee number 2, and then coffee number 3. At the end, there's a big reveal, and I say, "Oh, okay." You will notice that coffee number 1 is like a George Howell. Coffee number 2 is Wicked Joe's. Coffee number 3 is Intelligentsia or Blue Bottle or something like that. And everyone by this point on the poster, they've seen the scatter graph of various different, aromas and tastes, and their eyes just light up. They're like, "Oh wow!" And during this time, people, they'll ask about things like, "Well, tell me about brewing methods," or "What about, like, why is it that I like my regular cup of coffee?" And then I'll get into explanations of things like, well, the reason that we like a regular, for example, is the combination of the fats, sugars, and caffeine. That's a perfect kind of trifecta to wake you up in the morning. And then I'll explain things like about the crema on espresso, and it's fun. Then we have this just free for all conversation, and everyone leaves caffeinated and happy.
Yeah, and they're learning along the way. There's nuance in coffee, whether it's a light roast or a dark roast,
Yes.
whether this is from Nicaragua or Western Africa or wherever it's been brewed, if it's in a drip or if it's in a French press.
Yes.
And there's so many nuances that somebody could move it from just going through the motions with coffee to actually improving their coffee experience by just getting a little bit more educated in it.
Yes.
And like if like I don't drink Starbucks anymore. Starbucks coffee kills my brain. It's like too acidic or something because they love their dark roast. They like this like super bold flavor that like
Yep.
punches you in the mouth, and I don't, because it literally I think it's too acidic and it just kills my stomach, it kills my brain, and it doesn't work for me. And other people may be having similar experiences but not understanding how they can make that tweak. They're like, "Oh, I have to drink 5 cups of coffee to really get the jolt." It's like, well, are you drinking dark roast? Because light roast might have more
Yep.
caffeine, and it might save you from having to drink so many cups of coffee. And coffee is not cheap.
No.
Coffee is getting expensive. We were kibitzing about this before. How I did a tour of a Maxwell house buy recently. That was $12
Yes.
for probably 12 ounces, if not a pound of coffee. And I was like, I'm never gonna do that again. The value wasn't there for me. So you're bringing value to people by learning.
Yes, absolutely. So it's funny that you mentioned Starbucks, because one of the things that I've been talking about recently at some cuppings is Starbucks blonde roast, and like, why did Starbucks introduce the blonde roast blend, and explain about what, like, for example, what you commented on, that Charbucks experience. It's too dark, it's too acidic, and how Starbucks as a company in 2017 said, like, we need to have a kind of a blend that can be for espresso drinks, but is lighter, and addresses this issue that people are having. In fact, actually, Starbucks was saying that, like, look, if regular Starbucks is like a Guinness, this blonde roast is like an IPA. And so I think one of the things that's really fascinating is, like, explaining to people the kind of motivations of, like, coffee producers and roasters and what they're thinking about. And I also explain things like you talked about, the price point for the Maxwell House, and I will get into explaining to people things like, okay, shrinkflation. Like, you go to your grocery store, and, like, yeah, maybe you're paying $12 and maybe you're okay with that, but pay attention to the fact that, like, now the bags are not 16 ounces, they're 10 ounces. And it's just fun because people's, like, their eyes kind of light up when they're like, "Oh wow, like, there's all these considerations to this product that typically I haven't thought about before."
Yeah. And with the blonde roast too, they stopped serving that after like 11 a.m. or something at Starbucks, and I was like, why? I wanted the blonde roast. Like, what are we doing here? There's probably also, like, for a long time, I would I would grind my own beans
Yep.
at my house to have it the freshest bean. And out of being lazy, I went to the pre-ground because
Yep.
it's just like I'm going for. I'm sure these are all things that you guys talk about. You talk about being able to extract the oils through the French press by letting it sit in the hot water longer,
Yep.
versus a drip, which is just going straight through. They're all great, awesome educational points, which honestly anybody can enjoy.
Yes.
Um, so right now you've done a lot of sort of community event centers.
Yep.
So if you have a library and you want to have programming come in, this is a no-brainer. It's already been very successful in
Yep.
many communities. If you have another community center, very successful. Give us some other examples so the listeners here can put themselves in the shoes of how would I take advantage of this? Where could I use this? Because I can imagine you could bring this into your board meeting
Yes.
for an experience before going over financials, and now everybody's ready to go.
Yes. That's an excellent point. So in 2026, one of the things that I wanted to do with the business is to offer the service for more kind of corporate type settings. Earlier this fall, I did one at a biopharma firm in Cambridge, and it was so much fun. I think this is a perfect experience for like a lunch and learn, for a team building session. And again, because it's this combination of a little bit of education, a little bit of an interactive exercise, and a little bit of question and answer, what's interesting about it is that I am asking people to pay attention and make decisions. And of course, if you're like a CEO, you want your employees to be able to sort of pay attention and make decisions. And
Yeah.
it's not again, one of the sort of wonderful things about it is watching a group of people, and all of a sudden, like at the end of the hour and a half, they've kind of bonded. They're discussing their opinions with each other. Well, I don't really taste the apricot, or oh my gosh, I don't really smell the like wine smell you're talking. And they're talking to each other, and I think that's really fascinating because this experience of paying attention to coffee is now getting them to pay attention.
Yeah, you're breaking down the barriers between the team.
Yes.
And now you could run like a real like board event or a real meeting
Yes.
that would be more productive because you've created this team environment
Yes.
through
Yes,
this
exactly.
experience.
Exactly.
And this is something I know pricing can change, but this is something that's not that expensive. I mean, you're talking about like we were talking about this, like 15 people can take part in this hour and a half
Yep.
endeavor. If everybody had to go to Starbucks or go to Dunkin' Donuts and buy a coffee, or you were bringing coffee in for the meeting, you're gonna spend a few bucks per person anyways doing that. So this being anywhere from a couple $100s, a few $100s for a full team meeting of an experience, up to like several $100s if we're going further time.
Yep.
More people. We're asking to travel,
Yep.
beyond the region. Those types of things, like you're kind of already paying that anyways when you're like, oh, let's get Dunkin' Donuts and some donuts brought in for the board meeting today, and everybody's just going through that. This is a completely next level for really the same cost.
Yeah. I'm still playing with my pricing a little bit, but this is definitely affordable, especially when you think about, when you have like your talent and culture team, getting a coffee cart or a whiskey taster or an axe thrower. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
I'm definitely more inexpensive in that, and much less of a liability because coffee is much less dangerous than axes and alcohol.
Yes.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, I think that's an easy one. I could see this if you were doing like a bridal shower
Yep.
or a baby shower, or even at a wedding if you wanted to have a midday wedding or something between a wedding at a church and the full ceremony. It's like, hey, show up. Not people aren't drinking as much as they used to.
That's correct.
And so but that doesn't mean they're not drinking non-alcoholic
Yes.
items. So it's like, hey, if half your wedding party doesn't drink and you have this cocktail hour, why not bring in a coffee cupping
Yep.
for the people that don't? Now we've jazzed them up with a little bit of caffeine. The dance floor is going to be explosive. It's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. So
And you look sharp. Look at you. You're in your tie, you know? You'll dress for the occasion.
part of my vibe. Yes, I'm very interested in kind of going also as an offering as sort of like wedding or special occasion. And the reason that for that is because earlier this year I was doing a coffee cupping, actually in Essex, and I met this lovely young couple who had just recently got married. And they were cute as a button, and they said, "Oh my gosh, we wish that we knew about you when we had our wedding a couple months ago, because we had bridesmaids and groomsmen like flying in for the weekend, and we had to plan things for them to do. Here, go to Cape Ann Museum. Here, go to do this, do that, and this is such a great event for like a wedding party to do. Again, non-alcoholic, educational, fun, bonding, all that kind of stuff. So I'm very, very interested in exploring developing that service. And yeah, and it may require me like maybe I'll wear a tux, white glove, silver set, that kind of stuff. So, but I think that this coffee cupping idea has a really there's a place to grow with regards to doing these kind of special events. And I'm definitely looking for if anyone's like interested in talking more, please visit coffeecuppings.com or call me at 978-317-1640, and happy to discuss.
Yeah, you may have your own unique idea or way to use a coffee cupping. I'm sure you'd entertain them all. Like,
Well,
why not? It's just educating people on coffee.
yes, it's fun. And
everything's pretty much go to you at this point. There's not like a physical coffee store. Is that going to happen someday for you? Do we think?
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, one of the things that I really love about what I do, as I mentioned, is that I'm very agnostic, and I will sample various different types of coffees, and I'll bring different, 3 different coffees to each kind of cupping. So one cupping you might have, again, George Howell, Mary Lou's, and Wicked Joe, and then another coffee you're going to have Stumptown and 8 o'clock coffee or whatever. And then you'll also notice that when I'm throwing out these coffee names is that I don't always sort of focus on the top tier, most expensive. One of the things I want to educate people on is that like why does this coffee taste good and why does this coffee taste not so good? And getting people to sort of understand about things about, like, for example, blends, and like the need, like when you have 21,000 stores across the world, and this is an agricultural product, you got to like kind of make decisions about like how, you've got only so many beans, so many hundreds of pounds or tons of beans, and how to make a flavor that's sort of acceptable.
And some of that's changing too. With climate change.
Yes.
Where beans were being grown so efficiently before is migrating.
Yes.
And then you have your own natural disasters, which are wiping out some of those coffee harvests.
Yes. Yes.
You've got pests, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. So like one of the things that during the presentation, I'll often talk about, the 2 main types of beans, Arabica and Robusta. I'll talk about the droughts and wildfires in, like, say, for example, Vietnam or Brazil, which has contributed to the prices going up. I'll talk about the exploration of other types of species of coffee species that they're exploring right now to see if they can cultivate. I also talk a lot about like labels. So I'll talk about, okay, well, what does it mean like when you see a label on a coffee bag of like USDA organic or bird friendly or kosher or fair trade. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we do a lot of talk about fair trade.
One with coffee.
Yes, exactly. So I'll sort of explain about, again, like, what exactly is fair trade? Who are the fair trade certification organizations? What does it mean with regards to the taste? What does it mean with regards to the price? And again, it's just like people, like their eyes light up and they're like, oh wow, I get it now.
You know what I think another avenue for you is like there's coffee roasteries out there, like Atomic in Beverly, right?
Yes.
They might not roast in Beverly anymore.
No, I think they're roasting Peabody or Danvers.
but I mean, you could partner with some of them to almost sponsor some of this stuff, or I at least get coffee beans for free from them because they can get exposure, right? It's like, not that you have to manipulate your coffee cuppings yourself, but you may do a Cape Ann roastery cupping at the chamber.
Yes.
You know,
I'd love
where
to.
we take like Atomic Cafe, and I had a friend of mine that was roasting at his house on his Weber grill, and he was like spritzing like salt water on it to try to get the little salt, like took the bitterness out of it. And he had like a
Interesting.
crazy thing. We were all drinking it from him. We loved it when he was
Did
doing
it
it.
taste good?
It tasted really good because it had this little tinge of like sea salt essentially, which just made it really smooth. But you could probably, you know, compile these together and have them almost sponsor it to get more, you know, local exposure type stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually I was talking to an employee at Common Crow, and he was saying, I'd love for you to come and like at our store and just like do almost like an employee training of like, hey, like, okay, you know, what's the difference? Like, what is the taste difference between like, Ring of Fire versus Bird Watcher, versus this like Mellow Mountain or whatever their sort of brands are. And I mean, just as part of sort of employee education.
I bet coffee shops could do it too. Like break down the barriers of like feeling like competition, but like why couldn't Lone Gull have you come in for a morning? People come in and like you roast their coffee and you have some stats and stuff you can spit off to people really quickly about like, hey, you come in here every day and you get the medium roast with cream and
Yep.
sugar.
Yep.
Here's a sample of a light roast, a medium roast, a dark roast, which they do. You know, if you tweaked this would be a difference in there, and like just an experience even in that shop.
Yes. One of the things I'm very interested in, and by the way, a huge shout out to Lone Gull, awesome coffee shop, love it. Go there frequently. There is, I think, some potential for some very interesting kind of marketing data for either retail shops or roasters or coffee shops, because like one thing that's really fascinating is that people will tell me all sorts of information about like, well, I like this, or I don't like this, or I don't like this is what this one is tasting to me. And I'm very interested in sort of figuring out how to like get that information back to either the roasters or the coffee shops or what have you, and say like, hey, we're noticing that like with this particular blend that you're going, people are having, they find the mouthfeel creamy, but they're like um, are not, the NPS score is like 7.2.
Yeah, but
That
it's a
kind of thing.
big deal for like these little
Yes.
shops. Like they're competing with these conglomerates like Starbucks and Dunkin',
Yes.
and those people have their lane. But lone goals of the world, the atomic cafes of the world, potentially have this opportunity to really just take that experience to the next level, right? They have their own experience already, which is great.
Yes.
Like, don't get me wrong, like that's a real coffee shop. Like, no one is any longer sitting in Starbucks to do their work or to hang out with their friend as much as I feel like they would or would do in Lone Gull. So it's just different, and like what you're bringing is different
Yep.
too, and that's what differentiates them from Dunkin' Donuts in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
only their community aspect,
I mean,
but
Troy, I think one of the things you're hitting the nail on the head with regards to that coffee has a long history of community. I mean, going back to the coffee shops like in Vienna or London or Boston, Massachusetts in the 17th and 18th centuries, there's always been this association of people drinking coffee, getting together as a community, having conversations, and I think people are hungry for that, and that's why again, having this coffee cupping of where you get, a group of about 15 people and get them to pay attention to the drink and get them to start talking to each other about what they're experiencing. I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, like we live in an incredibly over digitized world. We're all stressed out. We're all feeling kind of disconnected and lonely. And this is a coffee cupping is an opportunity to like, feel connected, feel caffeinated, and, feel happy.
that's why I like the idea of finding more of the community ones, like like the libraries and like the community centers and like the coffee shops, because you with the right advertising, with the right outreach, with the right exposure, you can get strangers coming together and like kibitzing about
Yes.
coffee.
Yes.
Even like the teams were in the corporate setting, and that is neat. That's like we need more of that. There's not enough of that, but there are many successful versions of that as well. Like if you're there's other experiences where we can bring community together in similar ways. Like I feel like food trucks are like that. Like
Yes.
when they
Yes.
park somewhere, it's like people go and experience food together and kibitz that way too. So
Yes.
I love what you're doing. I love coffee. Like I don't I like it's my one vice, and I'm like I don't know, I don't know what it would take for me to give it up, and I'm just like I'm addicted to it. It's terrible, but it's my lifeblood. Sometimes I whisper into my coffee. I'm like, you better fix my whole life coffee every morning. You know, it's like those things that just like coffee is great.
I feel you.
It's so I think what you're doing is really neat too. You know, scream it from the top of the mountain. I'm glad you came on here and told everybody about it. And if anybody has, if you're coffee curious, you know, reach out to Rob. Like he said, it's coffeecuppings.com. His phone number, communications on there. Just reach out. He'll put something together. I guarantee it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Rob.